war, violence, poverty, oppression, corruption, genocide, deforestation and environmental poisoning, cancer, heart disease, anxiety, and depression. Look around and you will see that humans aren't doing so well. In fact, we're on the brink of destroying both our home and ourselves. And this isn't an exaggeration. With the growing threats of climate change, economic collapse, nuclear warfare, pandemic illness, and overpopulation, there's a very real possibility that we will trigger our own extinction. But the obvious question is this: how did we get to this point? Is it just human nature to mindlessly kill, burn, and destroy what truly matters? Well, I don't think so. In fact, I'd like to argue that these negative aspects of our species are not intrinsic, but rather are adaptations to the competitive lifeway of agricultural civilization. In other words, I believe that the transition from hunting and gathering to farming set us down a dangerous path that is manifested in the countless atrocities I just mentioned, as well as the pandemic levels of degenerative disease common in today's humans. But hold up. Wait a second. Am I actually suggesting that farming had negative effects on our species? Yes. Despite the fact that the agricultural revolution has been romanticized and misconstrued to represent our escape from savagery and the hardships of hunter-gatherer life, this actually couldn't be further from the truth. The evidence is in. It's overwhelming. And across the board, it shows that hunter-gatherer people had far better health, more leisure time, and superior bone and muscle growth than their agricultural counterparts. They weren't living in a constant state of famine, but were extremely skilled at harvesting food from the landscape. And more importantly, compared to us, they lived in a state of remarkable balance, peace, community, and connection. No, they weren't perfect, but their lifestyle was sustainable. It worked. Around 10,000 years ago, however, this lifeway came to a grinding halt. Scientists still don't know why it happened. Really, they're baffled by it. But regardless of the reasons for its inauguration, one thing is for sure. Once we transitioned to agriculture, our reality was never the same. A process began unfolding, a story that's yet to be finished, but one that has stained the history books black. Phase 1. A seed is planted, a people stop moving. It all started with the simplest of decisions. Instead of roaming the landscape gathering and hunting wild species, we would grow our food intentionally. We'd settle in one location, clear a piece of land, and cultivate the crops we deemed important. For the first farmers out of Mesopotamia, these crops were wheat and barley. Now this transition started slow and with good intentions. People wanted to create reliable food resources. They wanted to leverage the land to produce their favorite crops, and a lot of them. But the effects of this decision, no one could have expected. Phase 2. Civilization and class structures develop. As a result of living sedentary lives and cultivating mass quantities of a few plants, for the first time in history, we had a food surplus and the concept of land ownership. In other words, we had ways to accrue wealth. People could be rich or poor. Whereas in hunter-gatherer societies, everyone operated on the same egalitarian plane. This inevitably led to the creation of class structures. An elite class emerged. A military class was born to defend the interests of those in power. And political structures, as well as a priest class, were created to control the masses. And because we've been removed from nature and lost our ability to thrive as hunter-gatherers, we'd lost our sovereignty, and we had no choice but to obey. Phase 3. Mass control and physical degeneration. As we continued along this path, two changes began to take place. First, our health suffered. We actually became physically shorter with smaller muscles, smaller brains, and increased dental abnormalities. This is supported by many studies and thought to have been caused by very poor nutrition and the increased labor demands of farming. We also see evidence for more infectious disease or plague, probably caused by densely populated living conditions and the domestication of animals. And second, we see a mental change, a change in people's way of thinking. We see that instead of viewing themselves as a part of nature, people came to see themselves as above nature. They believed they had dominion over the earth. This ideological shift, I believe, led to the creation of a culture of conquest and subjugation. Nature became a resource to be extracted. People became pawns to be manipulated. Women were seen as inferior, and ideas like manifest destiny and religious or racial superiority emerged. Phase 4, a spiral into madness. Like I mentioned, once this agricultural experiment began, it was virtually impossible to stop it. There was no going back to how we lived before. We couldn't, because people had forgotten the skills necessary to live in that way. And so we plowed forward, racing towards continual progress and leaving a trail of devastation in our wake. As technology evolved, our madness became increasingly evident, and our crimes amplified. In the 20th century alone, 175 million people were deliberately extinguished by politically motivated carnage, from slavery to war and genocide, to mass extinction and deforestation, to the brutal conquest of indigenous peoples. It's not hard to see that we've gone mad. We're not right in the head. And as it's becoming more and more obvious, we're not right in the body either. Phase 5, complete physical collapse. I already mentioned the initial effects that agriculture had on our health. A reduction in body mass, height and brain size, smaller teeth and jaws, increased tooth decay and malnutrition, and a greater susceptibility to disease. But really, compared to what's happening to our bodies now, that stuff is nothing. Nothing. Today, we're facing the complete breakdown of our health to the point where we're unsure whether future generations will be able to produce children. And again, I'm not exaggerating. Today, 1 in 2 men will contract cancer. 1 in 3 children will contract diabetes. Nearly 1 million Americans die from heart disease every year. And the incidence of obesity has increased tenfold in the last century. So yeah, we're not doing so hot. And I believe that all of these changes we've seen can be traced to our decision to take a seed, put it in the ground, stop moving, and begin the cultivation of crops.